At this point, you may have decided to reload your windows back to the way that they were before. You may not have. Either way, it doesn't matter. We're going to continue working on this file by adding more components. So let's orbit around to the backside.
Which is looking a little sad. And I'm going to go up to the component browser. In the drop-down menu for landscape, you'll find a little bench. It says F wood bench high back. I want to bring this bench in particular into the model so that I can show you guys a little something about nested components. Backwards, so I'm just going to zoom in. And with the move tool, if I hover over the top surface, you'll see those little red tick marks. If you click on any one of those little red tick marks, you can rotate the component around 180 so that it's now facing the backyard. Now, I said I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about nested components. What is a nested component? Well, essentially, a nested component is just a component inside of another component. That might even be inside of another component. This bench in and of itself is a great example of a component that has within it some nested components. And in order to go in and edit this bench, one of the first things you want to do, obviously, is right-click and select the option for Edit Component. We also talked about that shortcut where you can take the Select tool and simply double-click on a component to edit it. Now you'll see that dashed bounding box, and everything else in the model kind of goes gray. That's the indication, again, that now this bench is the component in the model that you're working on. But when we go in to try to edit something in this component, say with the Push-Pull tool, you still see that little no symbol. Well, if you take the Select tool, you can click on any one of the little pieces that make up that bench, and you'll see all of these little pieces also have the yellow bounding box around them, which means that these pieces are also components. So this arm here on the side of the bench, this is a component that's nested within the larger component of the bench. In order to edit just that arm, I would want to right-click again and go to Edit Component again, or with the Select tool, double-click on it again to go into Edit it. At a certain point with the Select tool, when you start clicking around, you'll see that now you're actually able to select surfaces and edges. If I were to take the Push-Pull tool here, I could start push-pulling the arm of that bench. Now, I mentioned this was a nested component, so any changes that I make to this component are going to affect the other components of that arm in the model. So the other arm also changes. This is common with a lot of the components that you're going to bring in from the component browser. So if we want to go in and actually shorten this bench or lengthen it, either one, I want to go in and take one of the rails, one of the 2x4s that make up the seat of the bench, double click on that, and you could take the Push-Pull tool, you could push that part of the bench in. You can see that the other 2x4s that are just like it are also changing. So there's a lot of time savings here in terms of being able to go in and only have to edit certain pieces of this bench in order to shorten it or lengthen it. Take the Select tool, right-click off in white space, select the option for Close Component, and that's just going to close up that 2x4. Now I can go in and select all of the pieces over here on the right that make up the arm, take the Move tool, start moving that arm, hold down the Shift key once you find the red axis direction, then you can just snap right over to the end of the bench to put that in place. Take the Select tool. If you go into X-ray view mode, you'll see those extra little pieces on the back of the bench that you can select. Hold down the Shift key, select the other one, and then delete those. So editing nested components, there are kind of a couple of little tricks to it, but for the most part, just kind of try to keep in mind that sometimes when you right-click on a component and select the option for Edit Component, you're still going to need to right-click again and select the option for Edit Component again. The further down you go inside these components, the easier it's going to be to edit them. And in some cases, actually right here, we actually want to bring it all the way out. So you have to go into that component in order to edit it. When you're done, close the little component inside and then close the larger component all together.